Pope Francis is in France, highlighting the plight of refugees making the perilous journey across the Mediterranean. He's met with the French President Emmanuel Macron in the city of Marseille. The two met earlier in the day and later attend Mass at the Velodrome stadium. Pope Francis's visit is focused on migration, and he called on European governments to do more to care for migrants crossing the Mediterranean Sea. And let's bring in our correspondent Lisa Lewis in Paris now. Lisa, so the French president meeting with the Pope. Do we know what the two men are or have been talking about?
There are three topics on the agenda for this tête-à-tête between Pope Francis and Emmanuel Macron, Monica. So first of all, they will be talking about conflicts in the world, the conflict in Ukraine, conflicts in the Sahel region, in Africa. Secondly, the environment, so they'll talk about how to better fight climate change. And thirdly, and that is the main focus of Pope Francis' visit to France, migration. Pope Francis has been talking about migration extensively since he arrived in France yesterday. Today, in front of a number of bishops, he talked about the Mediterranean Sea, where an estimated 30,000 people died trying to cross it to get to Europe. And Pope Francis called the Mediterranean Sea the graveyard of dignity, showing to what extent Europe needs to do more to rescue these people.
Yeah, right, Lisa. I mean, yesterday, you mentioned it, he was saying that it is Europe's duty to rescue people in peril at sea. Let's just have a look at a report on his first day in Marseille, and then we'll be back with you.
Perched above the Mediterranean, Pope Francis and local faith leaders gathered at a monument to heroes and victims of the sea. Leading the group in prayer, Francis said that far too many people had never made it to these shores.
We can no longer watch the drama of shipwrecks caused by the cruel trafficking and the fanaticism of indifference. People who are at risk of drowning when abandoned on the waves must be rescued. It is a duty of humanity. It is a duty of civilization.
A long-time advocate for refugees and migrants, Francis thanked groups helping rescue those making the treacherous ocean crossing.
It was moving, because as someone who was rescued, I could never have imagined that I would have had a chance to meet the Pope. Today, to have seen him, I hope he will continue and that it will make others more sensitive to what's happening now.
The Pope's two-day visit comes amid a renewed influx of migrants travelling to Europe. Last week, the Italian island of Lampedusa saw nearly 7,000 people arrive in a single day. The issue is taking centre stage at the gathering of Mediterranean area Catholic bishops, which Pope Francis is attending. He will preside over the closing session on Saturday, with tens of thousands of people expected to attend a parade through the city.
And we're back with Lisa Lewis joining us in Paris. Lisa, the Pope there basically telling Europeans, in particular also the French people, how to deal with migrants. How is Pope Francis's pro-migrant appeal going down in France?
President Macron is clearly doing everything to show that he's standing side by side with Pope Francis. But when you look at how the two men see migration, the contrast is actually quite stark. President Macron is not known to have been very kind to migrants since he came to power in 2017. And only recently, his Interior Minister, Gérald Darmanin, he talked about the crisis in Lampedusa, where, as we heard, thousands of migrants arrived in just a couple of days. And he said France would not take in any of these migrants. He then had to backpedal and say, obviously, if some of them are entitled to political asylum, we need to take them in. But that just goes to show how tough a stance the French government has when it comes to migration, and that is, as I said, quite a stark contrast with Pope Francis' view.
So does the Pope's voice carry any weight in what is an inflamed European debate over migration?
Well, I think it does really. Here in France, Catholicism is the first religion, really, although it's a secular state. And some French commentators have been saying, you know, Pope Francis' visit to France forces us to talk about migration in another way, to underline that we have to be humane, that it is our duty as humans to assist and to rescue these people risking their lives for a better life here in Europe. And that is certainly the case for many people across Europe who will be watching him talking to people, appealing to their humaneness here in Marseille, in southern France, and might have to rethink their approach, including European governments.
All right, DW's Lisa Lewis there in Paris. Thank you so much, Lisa.